So this is a basic real fire artwork that I airbrushed recently, and I'll pop this link in the description below. And I had quite a few comments of people requesting that I put something within the fire. So in this video, I'm going to use this clown template and airbrush him within some green real fire. Let's get into it right now. And for this artwork, I'm going to start with an A3 canvas, but I'm going to run it vertically. Then I'm going to have the clown artwork airbrushed at the bottom with some fire coming up around him. First thing I'm going to do is base the canvas with some black. I'm using this HP TRN1 Neo from Iwata. I'm going to switch on the extraction fan. So I had a bit of a malfunction with the Neo. I think it needs a new nozzle, so it was back bubbling. So I'm jumping straight onto the Eclipse and I'm going to finish up the black using this brush. So you want to coat using a 50-50 overlap. So that means 50% of your second pass, the overspray of that will go and overlap on the first one. So using some phthalo green, I'm going to airbrush in the base. So the first thing I want to do is line up the stencil. I'm just going to do this by eye, and I want to just lightly fog in over the clown. And judging by that, I can only just see the outline where I've sprayed over the template. So I don't think the phthalo green is going to work. So what I'll start with instead is the dark green. Now, just for the purpose of the video, I'm just going to repeat this step, get it relatively close to where I had it before. It's not really going to make much difference. You'll see why in a minute. But I want to make sure that I can see that green. Again, just a light dusting. Fingers crossed this works better, much better. So you should be able to see the clown on there now. So that's all I want, just a very light impression of where it's got to go. Apologies, I forgot to film this section, so I had to use my time-lapse footage from my phone. I'm just using the dark green to establish the fire and my design. So I'm just going ahead and making up this clown, not using any reference. So you can change anything that you wish right now. You can always go back and reuse the template to get more of an impression if you haven't got a defined enough one from the first go. Add in the teeth. So you can see it looks pretty messy at the moment, but once I start to add more layers and sharpen up the design, it'll start to look a bit better. This is really just the underpainting, just to establish where everything's got to go. And just quickly fog over some of the other parts of the fire to brighten some of that up as well. Now I'm going to add some more detail in using white. So I'm going to add in some texture using some texture templates. Now using the white, I'm going to shape the artwork. So pick a light source. In this case, I'm kind of working off sort of directly above. With a glowing eye. As you can see, I don't want the skin to be perfect, so I'm kind of applying it nice and patchy. So again, brighter highlight along the top of the nose, and also added in a bit of texture there as well. And just lining up that stencil again, you can notice that there's a bit of hair in this section here, so I'll just put that in very softly and then come in freehand and airbrush that in. still relatively rough at this stage, so nothing is fine-tuned, just sort of mapping it in. Just sketching with my airbrush with that white. Grab the stencil again. Just re-add in some of that texture. So even if you're going to coat over texture, it's good practice to add it in as you move along through the design. You're going to highlight the teeth. Just hitting one edge, that top section. Teeth definitely don't have to be perfect. Now back to the fire template. This time I'm going to do a separate layer using the white. Again, just using those edges, creating a bit of a highlight, and then merging back into the design. And if you see shapes like this where it just ends and then reappears and it's a bit of a highlight line, try and find a shape that'll suit it. I think something like that. And then I like to just dust that in, and that'll just suggest that flame lick. Now I'm going to use some transparent base, pop that in this bottle, and I'm going to mix up the dark green again using this transparent base. So you want about the same amount of dark green. I'm just doing this by eye. And then put some reducer in. Give it a good shake. I'm now going to dust that over this entire layer. I'll try it down here first, make sure it works. That's looking good, it's doing what I want it to do. So as you can see, it's allowing me to coat back over the top of it without eliminating that layer that I've just finished. So you can coat this as much as you like. I'm going to go a little bit more. I'm still keeping all that texture in there. It's just a more defined layer with that green tone over the top of it. I'm going to stretch the skin out a little bit. Bit of damage in there from the fire. can see I'm shading out that lower section. Using that trans black to really crisp up all the detail and put in my shading. Adding a bit more of that stretchy skin, just to break it up a little bit. Bit of a stippling effect to build up the shadow on the nose and still get some texture in there. Going in and outlining the teeth with that transparent black. I'm going to bring highlights back in, so this is just to establish where they are and shape them a little bit. Now continuing with that transparent black, I'm just going to put some of that in the flame just to give that a bit of depth as well. So back in with white highlights. This time I want to be a bit more intentional with them. If you do add quite a bit of reducer to your white, you'll probably have to do numerous coats, but by doing so you're going to get less tip drying. That's what I'm using here. It's a much thinner white than what I used earlier. And you can see how much nicer that flows. So with this layer you're not going to add as much white as you did earlier. Less is definitely more. Just want to add in the highlights, get some shape to it. Use the highlights to really deepen some of the textures. You can even get the texture template again and carefully add in some more texture. So just build your white up slowly. It's easier to just add rather than trying to remove. And you can see I'm doing some softer highlights as well as brighter ones. Just remember, don't just go over the top of any of those skin areas that you've textured, because that's going to flatten them, especially with this white. So continue to build that texture. Essentially you're just hitting one of the edges just to highlight it. You're not going over the entire part. With the nose hitting that top highlight nice and crisp. You can definitely use a stencil if you wish. With the lips, I'm just doing some brighter sections to give it the impression that there's some wet spots. Again, I'm not using a reference for this artwork. If you don't feel confident just making it up, then by all means get yourself a reference image. Now I'm going to use that white with my fire templates and just bring in another layer on top. You can bring some of the flames over the top of the artwork as well, weave it in and out like with the hair. You can see I've run that flame lick over the top. That's just going to help to give it more of a 3D appearance. Now I want to use some fluoro green to give the artwork some punch. And this fluoro green is straight out of the bottle with a bit of reducer. So I'm not mixing it with transparent base this time. I'm just going to give the artwork a light dusting. So this time coming back in with the white, again just picking out a few white highlights here and there. I'm also going to go back in with the transparent black just to deepen some of those shadows again. You can see I'm not going over as much, so as you go along through these steps you should be doing less airbrushing as you get to the final stages. Also starting to add some of the highlights to the fire. Again, just a bit of texture. Some on the nose as well. Now continuing with that white, just some highlights on the green fire. Now carefully just take a bit of that edge off where it tapers from the colour back into the highlight. I'm just hitting those areas with a bit of the fluoro green, but I'm leaving the bulk white this time. So I'm only sort of hitting the outside edges, and I'm doing this before the transparent black, because that way any of that overspray can be cleaned up. This time I'm not really going over the clown, any of those areas, I'm just focusing on the fire. And now in with that trans black, the final detailing, and just to clean up some of that overspray. You don't have to airbrush in everything, you can leave sections, just hit the main areas. So again, less is more, and you should be painting less. What you really want to be doing is just shaping it. Dusting over the edges of the teeth, like in the corners here. Some of the grooves within the lips. Clean up some of this overspray while I've got the black. Even though it's transparent black and not solid black, it'll still blend in. And don't just black out the eye sockets either. Give them a bit more depth, so darker where the shadow is, and then feathering out where this section here still will catch some of the light. Same as if you're doing skulls, use the same method. So continuing with that black, I just want to clean up around some of this other fire. Blend that in to the original black. You don't have to do this, but I just think this will look a bit better. Especially because I've got it nice and clean around these areas. So to fast track your learning, you can definitely check out our online airbrushing course at airbrushasilum.thinkific.com, or you can continue to watch some of the other videos that I've got listed here. And until next time, go grab your airbrush, do some amazing artwork yourself, and I'll see you again very, very soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.